Every cup of Nespresso coffee is an invitation to transform your morning routine into a ritual you can treasure each and every day. Using the Virtuo Pop, a simple touch of the button freshly brews bold aromas and a rich, velvety crema layer for delicious cafe-quality coffee at home. Whether you enjoy your coffee hot or over ice, every sip, every morning is unforgettable. Nothing tastes like Nespresso coffee. Visit Nespresso.com or our app to explore our full range of easy-to-use machines and coffees not found anywhere else.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. From your morning podcast to your afternoon playlist, State Farm knows you personalize your entire day. And that's why State Farm helps you personalize your insurance with the State Farm Personal Price Plan. It offers coverage options that help protect what you care about most at an affordable price just for you. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer. Availability and eligibility may vary.
Amateur Traveler, episode 937. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about palazzos and panzerole, abbeys and aperitivos, ferries and focaccia al formaggio, as we go to Genoa and Liguria in northern Italy. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Liguria. I'd like to welcome to the show Enrica Monzani, who has come to us to talk about Liguria in Italy. She is coming from the A Small Kitchen in Genoa.com website that does food tours and food experiences in Genoa and Liguria. Enrica, welcome to the show.
Ciao, Chris. Thank you for having me.
It is quite possible that food may show up in this episode. I don't know for sure, but I think food and food tours might be mentioned. Enrica, can you put Liguria on the map for us? Where are we talking about in Italy?
Okay, Liguria is a very small Italian region. It's a tongue of land in between Tuscany and France. It's in the north. It's a coastal region. So it is the upper part of the boot, if you think about Italy like a boot. And we are on the Mediterranean Sea, of the Tyrrhenian Sea. And Liguria is this thin land squeezed between the mountain and the sea that stretches for 350 kilometers. Though it's a coastal region, Liguria is also the most woody region in Italy. So we have this huge contrast in between mountainside and seaside, which gives spectacular geographical landscapes to this region.
Excellent. Well, and there is one well-known tourist area in Liguria, which we're not going to talk about today, and that's the Cinque Terre.
Exactly. I'm not talking about Cinque Terre, which probably are the most famous part of Liguria, though I think that's people may not even know that the Cinque Terre are in Liguria, because most of the people goes to Florence and then have 1-2 days in Cinque Terre. But they are so well known around the world that I would like to focus on Liguria beyond Cinque Terre, because there is so much more.
Excellent. And if you're interested in the Cinque Terre, love the Cinque Terre, we have another episode back in the archives about that if you want to know more about that. But we won't be talking about that today. Enrica, why should someone go to Liguria?
Okay, Liguria is a wonderful region, not just because this is my region, but there are many reasons why traveling here. First of all, for its spectacular scenery, because of the geography of Liguria, we have a mix of mountain and sea with dramatic cliffs, hidden coves, scenic trails, and indeed from the landscape point of view, it's an amazing region. And we have, of course, the Cinque Terre. You can have an idea of how the steepness can explain the region, but we also have other fantastic landscapes like the well-known dry and stone walls, the so-called Muretti a Secco, which are awarded as a patrimony of UNESCO for its beauty and for its importance. So the scenery are fantastic. Then we have a wonderful cuisine.
I knew that would come up.
Yes, just for second place, not the first one. I was modest. But indeed, we are the capital of the famous basil pesto, which is the second most eaten pasta sauce in the world, and the Genoese pesto. And then Liguria is famous for its olive oil, especially the west part of Liguria, where we have a fantastic extra virgin olive oil from a special olives called Taggiasca olives, which is well renewed all around the world. Then we have extraordinary wines, and our extraordinary wines are Pigato, Vermentino, Rossese, Ormeasco di Pornasio, and these wines are fantastic just because they are in this very steep and difficult to cultivate land. They live in this microclimate on the sea, but at high temperatures, so the wine production is amazing in Liguria, though it is so small that they cannot export abroad. And so maybe you don't know Ligurian wines because we don't produce enough wine to export, but coming here, it's very interesting to visit wineries and taste our wines because they are fantastic. Then, of course, another reason to come to Liguria is to visit Genova, or Genoa, as everywhere else known, because Genoa is an amazing city, nothing to compare to Venice or Florence or Naples. Genova was one of the most powerful marine republics during the Middle Ages and Renaissance. Since 1100, Genoa was one of the richest cities in the Mediterranean Sea and also in Europe. So it was the seat of very important merchants and ship owners and financiers. Genoa was a very important finance hub in Europe, and this powerfulness of the city is reflected in the beauty of the city. So we have wonderful palazzos, and all this richness is palpable when you walk through the city. So visiting Genova and discovering its long history, which many people just think about Genova probably because Christopher Columbus was born in Genova.
What I was thinking of, yes.
Yes, that, but Genova is much more. So when you visited, you just a big world opens. You discover so many interesting things about the Mediterranean Sea and the European history, because the Genoese were very important actors in European history for so many centuries. And that's a pity it is not so known. But Lonely Planets awarded Genova as the best travel in 2025 city. We had this recognition as the best city to travel in. So luckily enough. And then there is the outside, not just Genova with its special charm, but also Liguria has so many tiny medieval villages and tiny villages on the coast and inland, which are amazing. And the beauty of these places is that they are still very authentic. So Liguria is a little bit out of the mass tourism. So it still keeps its authenticity, especially the inland. Also because of the character of the Ligurians, because we are not so welcoming, I would say. And so when you get to the inland, everything will just remain as it was in the past. And it's really authentic. And then we have stunning, wonderful beaches, the best beaches in Italy, and a lot of outdoor activities in the inland for climbing, for hiking, for diving. So
why don't we get into some of the specifics of your itinerary then? Where are we going to start? Are we going to start in Genova?
See, my idea is to start in Genova.
And what are we going to do there?
Okay, we arrive in Genova just because we have an airport.
Yes.
And we are well connected to Milan. My suggestion is to fly to Milan and then take a train or a car to get to Genova. My suggestion is to rent a car, because if you have a car, you can really be very flexible and you can also visit the inland, which is not connected by train. If you travel by train, you will remain on the coast. You can make many activities on the coast, but you will, of course, miss the inland because the buses are not suggestible as a mean of transportation. Okay, so my itinerary is we start in Genova. I suggest to stay at least a couple of days in Genova. when you arrive in Genova, it's better if you stay in an hotel. My idea is pick some high standard hotel in downtown, or look for an hotel just in the city center, because the city center downtown could be a little bit not safe at night. So my suggestion is, or very high rating hotels in downtown, which are in nice areas. Otherwise, stay in the surroundings of the old town. That's safer for you. That's the first thing I want to say. Because our downtown is fantastic, but at night, be careful. When you arrive in Genova, the first thing you have to do, as a very first thing, is to go to Spianata Castelletto. Spianata Castelletto is a fantastic, stunning panoramic terrace overlooking the city. So when you get to Spianata Castelletto, which is this terrace with pine trees and wonderful bourgeois palazzos, you get there, and from there you overlook all the roofs of the city and the port area. And you can have from there a wonderful idea of how the city is conceived. So you can see how wide is our historical center, which is the widest in Europe, by the way. And you can see the sea and the port and this geography of the city, because also Genova is squeezed between the mountains and the sea. So we have very steep mountains getting through into the sea. And so you can easily orientate. And the best way to get to Spianata Castelletto is with a public elevator, which goes from Piazza dell'Annunziata to Castelletto. And this public elevator is fantastic because you get inside this elevator inside the mountain, and then you get up, or you lift, you go up. And when the doors open of the elevator, you have this wonderful landscape. So that's something you should not miss as the first, let's say, business card of the city. Then another thing, that's the business card. To me, I always take people there as a first step. And then the other things that you can do just when you arrive is just getting used to the city, walk around downtown. Our downtown is famous for its narrow alleys, which are called caruggi. Walk around there and peep the shops. Genova is famous, or to me, one of the most interesting things in Genova are the old shops. Genova has many tiny little old shops belonging to the same family since generations, which remain unchanged. Many of them more than 1 century. And so when you get inside in these tiny shops, it's like a step in the past. And so they really are worth the visit of the city by themselves. We have so many. And they are grouped in the organization called Botteghe Storiche, which means historical shop. Mm-hmm. And they are protected by our commercial chamber. So they try to market a little bit these tiny, tiny shops. And they are fantastic. And a good way of visiting the city, just having a first bite of the city, may be doing a food tour, which is what I do, actually. Mm-hmm. But not just because I'm doing that, but because these walking food tour of 2 hours, 3 hours are interesting for visiting these tiny shops and tasting the food of the city along the way. That's a nice way of getting used to what you can eat in Genova and in Liguria. Right. So you can taste pesto, you can taste farinata, which is our famous chickpea pie, which we bake in the ovens. And you can have a taste of our wonderful candies, candied fruits. Focaccia, we haven't mentioned the focaccia, which is also very well known. A flat bread with deep dimples, shining of oil, which is our most common bread. So walking around the city and nibbling and tasting all this tiny food, to me, is a very interesting experience.
And anybody who's listened to the show for a long time knows that starting your visit of a city with a food tour is something I suggest a lot of places. So this is not just something that is coming from you. So it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea, especially if you have to spend the rest of your time in that region. You already know how to move. Exactly. and what to expect. And if you have a good guide, they can also tell you what's touristic and what's local. Yep. And so you get used a little bit to how to orientate in the food scenery as well. So these are my ideas for the first day. So just walk around. In Genova, before we dive into the more long things, there is a neighborhood of Genova called Boccadasse, which is a little bit outside the city center, well connected by cab or by bus, which is a tiny fisherman village inside the city. And so if you haven't been to Cinque Terre, or if you long for Cinque Terre, anyway, you can get there. And that's very nice. You have this little beach with the boat on the beach and the colored facade of the houses. And that's a fantastic place for having an aperitivo or for having dinner there, for example. If it is summertime, there will be a lot of people on the beach having their cocktail, Negroni, or their aperitivo, or their beer. And that's a very alive, tiny town inside the city.
Name of the city, I think, means the donkey's mouth.
Exactly, Boccadasse. That's because there was a river getting there once, and the shape of the bay looks like the mouth of a donkey. Boccadasse.
Okay, all right. I was going to ask. Thank you.
Exactly, that's why. That is why. Then once you have finished these first bites of Genova, the day after, you can dive into the UNESCO patrimony of our city, which are the so-called Palazzi dei Rolli. As I mentioned at the beginning, Genova was a very powerful city. The Genoese were extremely rich. They were the richest people in Europe. They used to lend money to the other reigns. They founded the first bank in Europe, which is Banco di San Giorgio. All this richness reflects in their maison. They had built, during the centuries, different palazzos inside the city. And these palazzo have nothing to envy to any king courts. So they have cloister, gardens in the back, they have ballrooms, frescoes, stuccos, mirrors, you name it, you have it. Paintings everywhere. Very important Dutch painters like Van Dyck arrived and painted the Genoese. So there is a huge patrimony of art and culture. And all these palazzos are grouped into the so-called Rolli system. There is a main street in Genova named Via Garibaldi, which was once the luxury street of all these noble families, where many palazzos were built one close to the other. So you can visit these palazzos and have an idea. Via Garibaldi is a long street with many palazzos, noble palazzos, one close to the other. So if you go there, you can visit them. For example, I suggest that you visit Palazzo Rosso, which is a noble residence, and now it's a museum where you can see how these noble houses were and how they used to live. Then you can visit Palazzo Spinola di Pelliceria, which is fantastic too. Or outside Via Garibaldi, but closer, there is Palazzo Reale, which was the seat of our king. Our king decided to go to live there in the 1800s. Actually, it was Palazzo Durazzo before the king decided to occupy it. And the Palazzo Reale is fantastic because it has this mirror saloon with lots of mirrors and stuccos and frescoes. And then it has a huge ballroom.
From the time period, you're talking about the King Victor Emmanuel, the first king of the reunited Italy?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly, and Queen Margherita. So they made it their residence in Genova. So this is why it is called Palazzo Reale.
Got it.
But before then, it was the palace of one of the richest family in town. And then, so you have to do the palazzos. Then in Genova, we have an aquarium, which is famous. One of the biggest aquarium in Europe, for sure in Italy. If you have kids, that's a very nice activity to do because we have dolphins and sharks and a huge amount of different fishes. So it's a nice thing to do. Also related to the sea, we have Museo del Mare, the Sea Museum, which is interesting because you have a history of the Mariner Republic and the history of Genova from the marine point of view. And you can also visit a submarine. There is a Second World War submarine in front of this museum. We have a very new museum of emigration. So if you're traveling to Liguria because you are looking for your origins, I had many clients who are looking for their origins here in Liguria.
Just to clarify, you're saying emigration, not immigration. So
Emigration.
this
Sì,
is
sì, the
everybody
museum
leaving from Genoa.
from
Okay.
Genova or taking the ship from
Yep.
Genova to the United States. Here we have this Museum of Emigration, which is the only one in Italy. And it's very new, modern. It's in a fantastic old building called the Commenda di Pre. And it's very, very interesting. I suggest it as an experience if you have time.
Yeah, I haven't done that one, but I've done a similar museum, the Red Star Line Museum in Antwerp, and it was fascinating. It's almost the other side of Ellis Island, if you will. All the story of people
Sì,
and why they left and how they left and
exactly.
all that they had to go through to get to, even just to get to the port sometimes.
How they were living before leaving and
Yes,
why they decided to leave, because they were living in very humble situations. So this is
right,
why they were
right.
forced to leave Italy.
I don't know about you, but I work hard for the money that I have and don't want to just give it away. But that seems to be what the big wireless carriers like. They like keeping my money. If you're tired of years of overpaying for wireless, go from crazy high wireless bills, bogus fees, and free perks that actually cost more in the long run. Switch to Mint Mobile. Say goodbye to overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/traveler. That's mintmobile.com/traveler. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. You'll get 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with the welcome offer of 150,000 points, your business can soar to all new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum, built for business by American Express.
I would like to tell you a couple of things that I think when you walk around downtown, you must visit, because to me they are fantastic. Just to have a look. The cathedral, San Lorenzo Cathedral, but you can't skip it because you will see it. It's in stripes, black and white. It's in the main down sea, because you will see in Genova many palazzos in stripes, black and white, made in marble and slate, because this was an honorific pattern that just the religious building and the building belonging to the municipality or to those families who rendered special services to the municipality were awarded to have their palazzos with this pattern in stripes, black and white. So if you see a palazzo which has this pattern, it means that it was an important building, or a church, for example, like our cathedral. And then there are tiny squares that are fantastic that you should not miss. One is Piazza San Matteo, and it is all in stripes, black and white, because this was the neighborhood of one of the most important family in Genova, family Doria, because Genova was an oligarchy and we had so many rich families competing for power, and they divided the city among them. So each rich family had its neighborhood with the palazzo, the private church, private warehouses, private square. And so we have this tiny neighborhood. One is Piazza San Matteo, which is fantastic. Then there is also San Donato Church, which is a very old church that guidebooks often miss, and it's amazing. Then there is a neighborhood surrounding Santa Maria di Castello, which is a church. That neighborhood, which is also Santa Maria di Castello, the name of the neighborhood in downtown, is the oldest area of downtown, and to me is the most magical because, one, there are no tourists, because there are no bars, no shop, no souvenir shop. You can't take a coffee there. No, there is nothing. Neither for the locals, there is nothing. But there is this wonderful charm of very, very old town with this old church, Torre Embriachi, which is one of the few towers backdating Middle Ages that remain up in Genova. To me, you don't have to miss that area. Walk there. And then last, you can visit the Lanterna, which is the symbol of the city, our lighthouse, the Genoese lighthouse. It's a nice thing to visit if you have time. So you go to the lighthouse, you get in, not at the top, at the middle of the lighthouse you can get. And from there, of course, you have a wonderful view of the city from the port. So you can see the mountains. That's quite the opposite view that you have from Castelletto, the first terrace I mentioned you, Spianata Castelletto. You have the opposite, so you can see the city from the other side. And so that's the other thing I suggest you to do when you are in Genova.
Now, you had suggested we get a car. I've driven through Genoa, and I'm not sure that I want to have a car while I'm in the city.
No,
so
not.
I probably want to pick it up when I'm leaving the city, right?
No, you don't need the car in the city.
Okay.
So Genova is really very, very, everything is so close.
It's packed. It's dense.
Dense.
Yeah.
You have been into Genova. Have you been to Genova?
I've driven through. It's all.
Yeah, okay, not the best thing to do. Okay, it's packed. Yes, you can rent a car when you need it. The first days, you don't need it. Everything is walking distance, or you can take a cab, and in 5-8 minutes, you go everywhere.
And we should say, in terms of driving, I've driven from Nice down to towards the Cinque Terre area. Okay. And when we talk about the coastline being right up against the mountains, in many places, there's not really even any room for the road. And so the road is going through tunnels and bridges, and it's just really barely clinging to the coast here.
See, true. That's true.
It's quite beautiful.
It's beautiful. You give me the opportunity to say that also that's about the cuisine, of course, which is my topic. But people think that being Liguria, a coastal region, right. We have so many beaches, sandy beaches, and we eat a lot of fish. And so our culture is conceived around the sea and the sea cult, which is not true because, by the way, we are peasants. So we most lived in the countryside. Also, our cuisine is a more countryside cuisine rather than a seafood cuisine. It is interesting. Okay. It is interesting. And there is a big misunderstanding about that, which arose at the beginning of the 1900s, because our sea is very deep and it's dangerous. So catching fishes was not so easy in the past, where nowadays we can catch everything. So people were not very used to eat fish. So fish was not something very common to eat. But for the tiny villages where the fishermen used to eat rockfish, what they can fish from the coast, fish was not something very common. The misunderstanding arose at the beginning of 1900 when the first tourists start arriving to Liguria to spend their holidays, especially from northern Italy or from England, from the northern of Europe. And they expect to eat fish because we were in a coastal region. And so the Grand Hotel of Liguria in Sanremo, in Portofino, to accomplish the needs of their customers, start preparing these big fishes in the oven, for example, to try to satisfy them.
Meet expectations.
Exactly, meet their expectation. Thank you. And so big baked oven sea breams, Ligurian style, is nothing very traditional. It's something relatively new and more for the tourists rather than for the people living in the region. This is because we are most peasants. We live in the countryside rather than on the village, on the coast. And we have also very few sandy beaches. On the west, we have wonderful sandy beaches. Otherwise, it's everything rocky, isn't it?
Right.
Like in Cinque Terre. Okay, so this is Genova. But we can move from Genova. My suggestion is stay in Genova as a home base, And then from Genova, take the train and go to the east part of Genova, visiting the area of Portofino. Portofino probably is as well known as Cinque Terre. Maybe you have heard about Portofino.
I've even tried to park in Portofino, and the idea of taking a train seems like a really good idea. We never found a place to park.
Actually, the train does not arrive in Portofino. To get to Portofino, you have to take the train and go to Santa Margherita. Then, when you are in Santa Margherita, you can either walk to Portofino. There is a wonderful promenade from Santa Margherita to Portofino, either one on the sea, so you just walk along the coast, and there are these wonderful beaches like Paraggi Beach, where Berlusconi had its house, and a lot of many other rich people have their villas. And then you arrive to Portofino, or there are hiking trails from Santa Margherita to Portofino. There are a couple of different intensity, and they are spectacular for the view. Or if you don't want to walk, you can take a bus. There are buses going back and forth from Santa Margherita to Portofino. That's the easiest way to get to Portofino. I suggest to visit Santa Margherita because Santa Margherita is a very charming resort town with a grand promenade, and then they have very nice shops. So if you want to do some Italian fashion shopping, that's the place where to go, though they are a little bit expensive, but you have lots of shops. And there is a nice villa to visit as well, Villa Durazzo, with fantastic gardens and the interiors as well, frescoed interiors. So you can visit, that's very nice. Then when you are in Portofino, do not think to make any shopping or fashion shopping in Portofino because it's immorally expensive. And neither consider to dine in Portofino because it's immorally expensive as well. So my suggestion is go to Portofino, visit the village. It's very nice. It's better in low season rather in high season, like Cinque Terre, because it's so touristic and it's also a port. And you risk to see huge mega yacht moored in this tiny port. And so you can't even see the horizon because you have this maxi yacht moored in front of you on the quay. So low season is better.
And when you say low season, I'm thinking sort of November to March. Am I close?
Right. That is the low season.
Okay.
Even October, March, low season. But when you're in Portofino, you can visit Castello Brown, which is an ancient fortress, and you have a breathtaking panoramic views, and also the little church of San Giorgio, which is the church of Portofino. And from there, you can see the inner part of the village, and that is very nice. Or if you want to walk a little bit, there is a wonderful walk on the coast until the lighthouse, which is just around the promontory. And you get to the lighthouse, you have a fantastic view of the coast, and at the lighthouse, there is a nice cafe where you can have lunch or an aperitivo. And that's a smarter place because you have to walk a little bit, so it's just not inside the fashion square of Portofino. And that's a very nice place to stay. La Portofinense is the name of the bar there. Then, in the same area, there are another couple of things you can't miss. One is Camogli. Camogli is the train stop before Santa Margherita. Camogli is a fisherman village, which is remain still authentic. Camogli has this nice sandy beach with all the houses of different colors facing the sea, a fantastic castle prolonging on the sea. And Camogli was very famous for its seafarers, and it was an important hub in the Middle Ages for shipbuilding. Camogli is very nice. In Camogli, you have to taste focaccia al formaggio. Focaccia al formaggio has nothing to do with the focaccia, the bread-like cake bread. Focaccia al formaggio di Recco is a pie with creamy cheese inside. It's made of thin layers of unleavened dough, like filo dough, and a lot of creamy cheese inside. That's one of the most fantastic things in the world. And in Camogli, there is a tiny shop called Revello, where they make this fantastic focaccia, which is, by the way, is an IGP product. So that's a product protected by the European Union as one of the products that is produced in the very same place, identifying that place. So they put a label on any slice of focaccia you buy, and there is a tiny mark that they put on any slice. You must try it when you are in Camogli. And from Camogli, you can take a ferry boat and go to San Fruttuoso Abbey. San Fruttuoso Abbey is a medieval Benedictine monastery, really hidden in a very, very tiny bay. And you can get there just by boat or hiking for almost 1 hour, going down and going up. So it's engaging and quite tough hiking, but you can take the boat.
A hike, not a stroll.
Exactly, a hike, a climb, a hike.
Okay.
But you can take the ferry boat, and there are many ferry boats along the day. And you visit San Fruttuoso Abbey as these pristine waters, and there is just this old abbey and a couple of restaurants where you can eat very well. And if you have succeeded to have lunch there, you can also stay on the beach if the weather so permits. And if you have lunch or dinner there, I highly suggest to order mandilli de sea. Mandilli de sea are the local lasagnas of Liguria, and they are square sheets of pasta layered one over the other, and in between there is pesto. So they are not like the Bolognese lasagna that you can imagine. They are these big sheets of pasta, which are called mandilli de sea because in Genoese dialect it means silk handkerchief. So like the handkerchief in silk, which are smaller. So, and you have these layers of pasta with pesto in between. And there in San Fruttuoso, they prepare the best one I have ever tasted after mine, after the one I prepared at home. But by the way, that to me, that's the best way of eating pesto is with that shape of pasta. There are a couple of restaurants. My favorite is Da Giorgio, which you have the table on the sea. It is very, very nice and charming and romantic and whatever. And so San Fruttuoso Abbey is fantastic. Also in that area, but you just have 1 day, but you can choose. You can also do many outdoor activities, hiking, because the Portofino mountain promontory is a national park. And so there are lots of trails in between. You can also do some snorkeling and in the marine reserve, which is just outside the area. The area is all a marine reserve. Or you can go kayaking in Portofino. Or if you love extra virgin olive oil and you want to do a foodie experience, you can visit a very good olive oil producer just in Santa Margherita, a few meters above Santa Margherita. Its name is Agricola Santa Barbara. And there you can taste a fantastic Ligurian oil. And the owner is also a natural guide. So he can take you around the mountain for any hiking. Or you can visit their olive grove. It's very nice. The owner is a nice person, and you can organize with him really out of the touristic path walk to Portofino along the mountain.
Okay.
So this is Portofino. Then you go back to Genova and stay in Genova. I don't suggest to stay and to sleep in that area because it's very, very expensive and crowded. So to me, going there back and forth by train is the thing. So it's very, very easy. Then my suggestion is to move to the west of Liguria. But I have one additional day that if you don't want to move to the west, if you don't want to rent a car, if you're arriving from Cinque Terre and you want to stop in between Cinque Terre and Genova, my suggestion is to go and visit Sestri Levante and Chiavari. Sestri Levante and Chiavari are in between, let's say, just to orientate, Cinque Terre and Portofino. So they are closer to Portofino, actually. And they are very nice both. Sestri Levante is famous for its fantastic beaches because it's a very old city on the sea, which has 2 bays. Baia del Silenzio and Baia delle Favole. And because it has a very, very special shape with this promontory, which is almost an island, but it is connected with a very thin tongue of land where there is the old city. And so you have these two bays from one side and the other side. Difficult to orientate when you are there because you don't know where you are. Mm-hmm. And the historic center has this very nice alley, main central alley, with a lot of nice shops. So I suggest to go there. In between the bays, there is an old monastery, Convento dell'Annunziata, which has a stunning view, and so you can visit it, and it's fantastic.
So the Convent of the Annunciation.
Dell'Annunziata, esatto.
Okay.
Convento
And
dell'Annunziata.
the two bays, I'm seeing that one is the Bay of Silence.
One is the Bay of Silence, Baia del Silenzio.
And the other one is Favole, and I don't know how to translate that.
Favole are accounts, fairy tales.
Ah, okay.
Fairy tales. Translated. Okay. And when you are in Sesti Levante, if you are a foodie or a wine lover, you can visit a winery, Cantina degli Abissi, which is just in the back of Sesti Levante, 5 minutes driving. You can hire a cab. When you are there, it doesn't look like to be on the seaside because you think you are in Piedmont. Because you are surrounded by these very gentle hills with the vineries and the old abbey. It's a wonderful winery out of the context. Cantina degli Abissi, they produce a special wine which is aged under the sea. So the owner invented this way of aging wine at very deep levels in the Portofino Marine Reserve. That's a special way of aging their wines, Cantina degli Abissi. And when you taste their wines, you have these bottles which stay under the sea for a couple of years, which gets out with all the shells attached to the bottles. That's an interesting thing because the owner, he graduated in archaeology, so he made a lot of studies about how the Romans used to preserve wine. Invented these methods. And so it's interesting to see. And also their wines are fantastic. So I suggest to visit there in that area.
I've never heard of such a thing. I was looking at their website trying to make sense of it before you said that, and I was not getting it.
Do you understand what I said? So
Yeah.
Okay, so have a look because he's the only one who makes it in, I don't know if in the world, but for sure in Italy. He had this very special idea.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on turbotax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live full service.
And then after Sesti Levante, going back to Genova or going to, if they are very close, you have to stop in Chiavari. Though Chiavari is on the coast, you have to disregard the seaside and the promenade on the sea. Chiavari is fantastic for its old town and for its porticos. It looks like a little bit Bologna with these long porticos, medieval porticos. Okay. And under the porticos, there are, again, like in Genova, old shops remained the same since decades with these old shopping windows. And you have nice cafe, and you can taste farinata. You have small artisans. And if you are lucky enough to get there the first Sunday of each month, they have an antique market along the streets, which is fantastic. Also, they have a fruit and vegetable market in the main square of the church every weekend, where all the peasants brings their food, and it's very alive. To me, Chiavari is fantastic. I would love to live there.
Okay.
And you can eat very well in Chiavari. So, which is not a bad idea. And so that's an optional day before leaving Genova. And then I have to suggest a couple of other days in the west of Liguria, which is still very unknown to most of the tourists, which is a good thing because when you travel there, you will really live the Italian life. It's very authentic and can really experience our ordinary life all year long, even during the summertime. So it's not so crowded. So going to the west, because it's easy to travel to Liguria because it's just a long line. So we are going to the west. And I suggest to move from Genova to Alassio and to have another stop and sleep in Alassio or in Albenga. And in this journey from Genova to Alassio Albenga, I suggest to stop in two places. One is Finalborgo. Finalborgo is a perfectly preserved medieval village surrounded by ancient walls and very rich in history. Let's like being in a movie. So you have this medieval village, very well preserved, with the city walls all around. And I really suggest to go there. And that place, the area of Finalborgo, and there is a wonderful restaurant called Il Torchio inside the alleys, and they prepare fantastic local food. Finalborgo and all the area of Finale is famous for the outdoor activities. They are famous for climbing, but that's not something maybe you want to do in 7-day tour, but lots of climbers from
Some of our
north of
listeners
Europe,
do.
maybe. Lots of climbers from north of Europe come to Finale because in Finale there are a lot of cliffs. There are cliffs on the sea, but there are a lot of cliffs in the inside. So that's a very interesting place where to climb in between and almost untouched woods. This is a very amazing place. Or if you like biking, you can mountain bike. There are a lot of trails that goes around the trees and the forest for getting down with the mountain bike. And then there are a lot of trails. And the trails are fantastic because you can walk in the mountainside with an astonishing sea view. So you are very high on the sea and see the coast, but you are on the mountainside. So that area is fantastic for any sport activity. And indeed, there are many, many people coming, especially from the northern of Europe, to spend their days and their summertime in Finale. And that's for the outdoor mountainside. Close to Finale, there is Noli. Noli was a mariner republic, tiny mariner republic in Middle Ages, and it's a fantastic village on the sea. And Noli has a pristine beach, sandy beach, which is fantastic, one of the most beautiful along the Ligurian coast. But also the historic center of Noli is very nice because it reflects the fact that in the past it was an independent mariner republic. And so there are these medieval towers, cobblestone palazzos, and it's fantastic staying there. There is also a fantastic trail leading to Caponoli. So you have this trail always on the coast, and you have these breathtaking views of the sea from the cliffs from the coast. If you go to these scenic trails, you can access to very tiny rocky beaches, which are almost not visited by anybody. So very private and nice. And in that area, again, back to food, actually wine, there are nice winery in the backcountry of Finale and Noli. In that area, they produce a special wine called Granaccia and a very good winery called Punta Crena. And I know that they run, for example, wine experiences. So I know that they run wine tastings also for tourists. So they speak English and you can go and taste. But for doing these activities inland, you need a car for sure because you can't get there by trains or bus. Okay. And then when you get to Alassio is a beach resort. a tiny village, again on the coast, which has a very nice inner street called Budello. Alassio is the village where many people from Milan come to spend their holidays. And so it has a special charm because the rich people from Milan go to Alassio to spend their time in the holidays. So you have nice shop, everything is very well maintained. And you have these pedestrian streets with gelato shops and bars. It's a nice place to spend, I would say, an evening. So this is why I suggest to stay in Alassio, take an aperitivo, do some shopping, walk around. And there is a special treat that you have to taste, which are baci di Alassio. Baci di Alassio are like baci di dama, which you probably know what they are. They are these tiny cookies made with hazelnut shortbread, and in between you have chocolates. 2 discs of hazelnut shortbread with chocolate inside. They are typical of Piedmont most of the time, mainly, but we have them in Genoa as well. Well, in Alassio, they do it just with chocolate. So you have these tiny, let's say, balls of chocolate and hazelnut cookies put together with a
chocolate paste.
Paste. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's the special thing about Alassio, and buy very few of them. Otherwise, you could try not to exaggerate because they create addiction. In Alassio, there is to stay. There are some very nice resorts, 4-star resort on the beach. And there are also many Airbnbs. It's a touristic place. So you can have a lot of accommodation and you can decide where you want to stay. You can also decide to stay in Albenga. Albenga is a medieval town. This is also a nice town, very well preserved. And you can also consider to stay there, skip Alassio and stay in Albenga. And you have a different, of course, another option because Albenga is inland. It has no beach. And it's, again, a medieval city. Then my suggestion is to move ahead to the France border, let's say, with another visit of other places interesting. One of these is Cervo Ligure. So in day 5, I suggest to visit Cervo Ligure, which is a village on the sea coast, clinging on the sea, with a fantastic big, I would say cathedral, though it's just a church, facing on the sea. It is a medieval village as well, and it really deserves a visit. Not only because it's where my grandparents come from, but also because it is awarded one of the nicest villages in Italy. It's very steep, so you have to walk up because it's only pedestrian, so you cannot go there by car. You can get at the top of the village with the car, and then you have to go down or reverse, like Cinque Terre, more or less. And it is very nice. But it takes 1 hour to visit, nothing more. Just you stop there, visit the village, and then go. Because there are few restaurants and few shops. So it's nice to see the village itself, but not consider to spend too much time there. But then, instead, going towards the France border and towards the next stop I suggest to stay in, which is Sanremo, I really suggest to visit the inland of Imperia. Because the area of Imperia is one of the main cities of Liguria. That area is the extra virgin olive oil district. So it is where the most part of the extra virgin olive oil in Liguria is produced since the 1100s, when the Benedictine monks decided to implant this special variety of olives called Taggiasca. And so the inland of Imperia is just made with stone terraces and olive groves. It's amazing. You have these stone terraces, very well kept and preserved, with all the olive groves there. And my suggestion is to go to Lucinasco. So your goal is to get to Lucinasco, which is a very tiny village on top of the hill. And to get there, you need a car. You have to drive along these curvy streets going up until the top, all olive groves. It's amazing. It's amazing. And there you can have your olive oil experience. So there are lots of olive mills which offer tastings, who sells their oil. For example, Olio Armato. Cristina is a very dear friend of mine, and she stays in Lucinasco. And she runs this extra virgin olive oil experience where she lets you taste the olive oil. You can visit her mill, and she lets you visit the old olive mills and the old church. So you can have this 300 degrees visit of the tiny village of Lucinasco and get immersed into the extra virgin olive oil traditions and history of this place.
Okay.
And also there is another place very nice to have tasting and eating, which is called Petricore. And that's also in Lucinasco. It's not an olive mill, so you will not visit the olive mill and all this stuff, but you can have tasting and have an aperitivo and dine under the olive groves. It is very nice. Along the street, you can find a very nice village called Borgomaro, always authentic, very well preserved, almost unknown village, deserving a stop, Borgomaro. And in Imperia, or actually on the way to Lucinasco from Imperia, there is also the Museum of Extra Virgin Olive Oil, which is very interesting. That's the capital. It's the Museum of Oil, so from the Roman area until today. So you can really live the history of oil since the beginnings of human life, human existence. It's very nice.
Okay. And that is in an ancient olive mill, is what I'm seeing.
Carli Mill, because that was the seat of one of the biggest oil producer in the area, which is Carli. Okay. If you dine in that area, you should taste Branda Cujun, which is one of the most iconic dish where extra virgin olive oil is a main ingredient. Actually, there is a lot of oil there. And Branda Cujun is potato and stockfish mash. So stockfish is codfish. Boiled codfish and boiled potatoes mashed together, seasoned with a gentle amount of extra virgin olive oil and garlic and parsley. And you have this mash, and it's a typical product of this area. So you will find it in the restaurants. In that area, there are many savory pies, like in Genoa as well. So pies made with filo dough and stuffing of vegetables. When you travel Liguria, you will find savory pies made with vegetables everywhere. In that area, they have many, especially made with the Swiss chard and zucchini. The west of Liguria is famous for its rabbit. I don't know if you fancy eating rabbit, but it is very Ligurian. Rabbit.
I've had wonderful rabbit dishes.
Okay, indeed, I love rabbit. It is stewed with other Ligurian flavors like pine nuts and rosemary and olives. And so the rabbit is very typical of the West Liguria. So in that area there, it's very good. We decided to stay in Sanremo. And then from Sanremo, we visit the far west of Liguria. That area has wonderful villages, 2 wonderful villages that we really need to visit. One is Dolceacqua. Dolceacqua is famous for its castle and for its old bridge, Ponte Vecchio, and for its historical center.
And I'm translating that sweet water?
Sweet water. Exactly, because there is a river passing through.
Okay.
And they used to call it Dolceacque. Probably because the waters were sweeter, right? I don't really
guess
know.
So, yeah.
By the way, talking about liquids, Dolceacqua is famous for its wine. There is a famous DOC wine, Rossese di Dolceacque. And that's the opportunity to visit a winery. So there are many wineries producing Rossese di Dolceacque. And when you are in the area, I suggest that you visit some. Then, in Dolceacque, there is a special bread called michette, which is a sweet bread, kind of brioche. And so if you walk around Dolceacque and find a bakery, ask for michette di Dolceacque. And then from Dolceacque, there is a curvy, narrow street leading you to Apricale. Apricale is another fantastic village, which is just on top of the hill. You walk, when you're in Apricale, you can't walk around the village by car. You have to a little bit walk, hike, climb, because it's very steep. And at the top of the village, there is a castle called Castello della Lucertola. Don't ask me how you translate Lucertola in English. I don't know. Lucertola is... and my suggestion is just to walk around the village. There are many tiny artisanal shops. This is a very artistic village. In the summertime, at night, they used to do theaters in the squares of the village. So there is this walking theater with different scenes in different squares of the village. And there is also an albergo diffuso, which is an hotel that has each rooms in different houses scattered here and there in the village, which is very nice too. And the typical dessert of Apricale are panzarole, which are fritters, sweet fritters, le panzarole di Apricale.
And I'm seeing the translation of the castle name to Lizard Castle.
Okay, thank you. Okay. My English is not that good to get to that word.
Your English is much better than my Italian, so...
Thank you.
Io parlo italiano non molto bene.
Però lo capisci bene, perché traduci molto bene le parole che mi mancano. You translate quite well the words I miss. And so with this, I had finished my suggested itinerary, which would take probably 14 days rather than 7, because it's very long. But anyway, you have many, and there are much more to say, but we can't stay here all the day.
Well, and we will go to wrap this up because this is one of the longer shows here. Anything else we need to know before we head to Liguria?
Travel during low season.
Okay.
First, the perfect time is springtime and deep fall. Skip December and January because everything is closed. So it's too extreme. Rent a car, and if you have time, travel inland, because there are so many wonderful landscapes and tiny villages and old shops and whatever scattered here and there. That's the amazing part. Still the uncovered, secret, mysterious part of our region, and you should take it before it goes away.
You are standing in the prettiest spot in Liguria. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
Camogli.
Okay.
I would stay in Camogli. I love that village so much. To me, it wraps everything Ligurian.
Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Liguria.
That is only in Ligurian? The Ligurians.
Yep.
The Ligurians. Because some of them are not welcoming.
You mentioned that.
Because it happens also to me when I travel, especially the inland of the region. And you have these people working in the business. They are not welcoming. And so you cannot but laugh about that. So that's the most beautiful, fun part to me.
And if you had to summarize your home region here of Liguria in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use? I'm guessing one of them is food. But...
3 words. Food, sea storms, swells, food, swells, and chestnuts.
And chestnuts. Okay, I didn't see that one coming. Interesting.
See, because chestnuts means a lot of things here in Liguria. We don't have time to talk about that, but chestnuts.
And our guest again has been Enrica Monsani, and her website again is asmallkitcheninGenoa.com, which I'll put a link to in the show notes.
Thank you.
And if we wanted to send people to your best post or maybe your best tour that has to do with this episode, where would we send them to?
Well, on my website, I have a Genoa food tour. 2 hours food tour. To me, it's a good opportunity to discover Genoa and Liguria when you are in Genova. And I also suggest to take a cooking class if you are a really passionate foodie.
Excellent. Well, Enrica, thank you so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love for the beautiful region of Liguria.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
This episode is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian makes the team collaboration software that powers enterprise businesses around the world, including over 80% of the Fortune 500. With Atlassian's AI-powered software like Jira, Confluence, and Loom, you'll have more time to do the work that matters. In fact, Atlassian customers experience a 25% reduction in project duration per year. Unleash the potential of your team at Atlassian.com. Atlassian.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for an Oikos remix or light and fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of sea salt praline pretzels, dark chocolate, and butter toffee, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 6 remix varieties, 3 Epic Complete Protein Oikos remix options, or 3 craveable light and fit remix options. See remixyogurt.com.
A special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially, and a special thanks to Wes Yuckin, who is the latest patron of the show. Thanks, Wes. If you're interested in learning more how you can support the show or what you get by being a patron, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. Since the last episode came out, there's been a Q&A episode, a bonus episode, so make sure that you check that out. And then also 2 posts on Palm Springs, one on the Palm Springs Aerial Tramway and one on the Living Desert Zoo. And you can find both those at amateurtraveler.com. The Amateur Traveler trip for 2026 has been decided, and it's going to be Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. And go to amateurtraveler.com/trips for details and for signing up when that becomes available. Join the mailing list if you want to make sure that you find out about those things ahead of time. With that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.
Got to see one more cathedral.